It worked in mice. It worked in mice.
Welcome back to It Worked in Mice, the podcast where we look at the latest health headlines and I try to figure out if any of this will ever make it to my local pharmacy. I'm Alex.
And I'm Piper, and I'm here to remind Alex that every great medical breakthrough starts with a single study. And speaking of breakthroughs, Alex, how's that bitter, sludgy coffee you insist on drinking every morning?
It's the only thing that makes me feel remotely human. It tastes like despair and smells like burnt ambition. Why do you ask? Are you about to tell me it's giving me some rare form of elbow cancer?
Quite the opposite, my cynical friend. According to a new study, that very bitterness you love to complain about might actually be waking up your brain in a way that's similar to a mild workout for your nervous system.
A workout? My coffee is doing tiny little bicep curls in my brain? I find that hard to believe. I feel like it mostly just yells at my neurons to get out of bed.
That's basically what the research says. Scientists were puzzled by flavanols. Those are the compounds in things like dark chocolate, tea, and yes, your bitter coffee. Only a tiny amount of them actually get absorbed into your bloodstream. So how could they have such a big effect on brain function?
I'm guessing it wasn't magic.
No, it was taste. The hypothesis is that the astringent, bitter taste itself acts as a direct signal to the brain. They tested this on mice, of course.
Ah, there it is, the name of the show. So what did they do? Serve the mice tiny little espressos?
Something like that. They gave them oral doses of flavanols. The mice that got them showed more physical activity. They were more curious and explored more, and they did better on learning and memory tasks. All this despite the flavanols barely entering their bloodstream.
So the taste itself is like a jolt to the system? The sensation of, yuck, this is bitter, is what makes the brain go, oh, something's happening, time to pay attention.
Exactly. The sensory stimulation is transmitted by sensory nerves, which then activates brain regions linked to attention, motivation, and arousal. It lights up the parts of your brain involved in memory. So that bitter taste isn't just a taste, it's a direct message to your brain to sharpen up.
I knew it. My preference for coffee that could double as industrial solvent is actually a sign of my high intelligence. I'm not grumpy, I'm just activating my sympathetic nervous system. I'll be telling that to my boss.
Please don't, but it is a fascinating way to think about it. It's not just what you consume, but how you experience it. The sensory input matters.
All right, I'll give you that one. It's kind of cool, but it feels like a low-stakes discovery. What else you got? I'm feeling particularly optimistic today, which means I'm ready to have my hopes dashed by some grim new finding about the human body.
Well, let's not call it grim. Let's call it empowering information. There's a major new study out on menopause and its link to changes in brain structure.
Ah, boy, I can feel my manufactured optimism fading. Don't tell me, it makes your ears fall off.
Nothing that dramatic, but it is significant. Researchers analyzed data from nearly 125,000 women from the UK Biobank. They found that menopause is linked to a loss of gray matter in key brain regions.
Gray matter? The important stuff? The thinking and feeling stuff?
Yes, specifically in areas tied to memory and emotional regulation. This might explain why many women report increased anxiety, depression, and fatigue during this time. The brain is physically changing.
So it's not just a hormonal shift, it's a structural one. That's a lot. I'm guessing the next part of the study is the miracle cure that fixes it all, right?
Not exactly a cure. They looked at women who used hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. Interestingly, HRT didn't seem to reverse these changes in gray matter or the mental health symptoms.
Wait, so the main treatment doesn't fix the main problem they just identified? That doesn't sound very encouraging.
Hold on, it's not all bad news. While it didn't reverse the gray matter loss, HRT was associated with a slower decline in reaction speed, so it might have other age-related benefits. But the key takeaway here isn't about a specific treatment, it's about understanding. For years, these symptoms were often dismissed. Now we have evidence showing there are real structural changes happening in the brain.
So the study is basically saying, no, you're not imagining it.
Precisely. It validates the experiences of millions of women, and the researchers are framing this as an important turning point for brain health. Understanding that this transition period affects the brain so directly means we can start looking for new ways to support women's cognitive health long term. It's about knowledge being power.
Knowledge that your brain is shrinking. I'm not sure if that's powerful or terrifying. Let me grab my bitter coffee to stimulate what's left of my gray matter. Be right back.
It worked in mice. Worked in mice. That sounds real nice.
Sounds real nice.
Will it work for you? Let's find out what's true. It worked in mice.
And he's back. Did that bitter brain workout do the trick? Need me to read the study to your neurons directly?
Very funny. I'm fully stimulated and ready for the next piece of cheerful health news. I assume we're moving on from brain changes to something even more fun, like a diet that's impossible to follow.
Your intuition is spot on. Let's talk about the ketogenic diet and its potential impact on treatment-resistant depression.
Keto? The one where you eat bacon and cheese, but you can't look at a piece of bread without breaking the rules? I've always been skeptical of that one. It sounds like a fad.
A lot of people feel that way, but researchers are exploring its impact on the brain. This study specifically looked at people with what's called treatment-resistant depression. That's when someone's symptoms haven't improved even after trying at least 2 different antidepressants. It's a really tough situation.
Okay, so these are people who are really struggling and need other options. I'm listening. What did they find?
They took a group of adults with this condition, and for 6 weeks, half followed a strict keto diet, while the other half, the control group, followed what they called a phyto diet, which was basically just adding more fruits and vegetables and swapping saturated for unsaturated fats.
So, keto versus a generally healthier diet. Seems like a fair comparison.
At the end of the 6 weeks, both groups saw improvements in their depression symptoms, which is good news in itself. But the keto group saw a slightly greater improvement. Their depression scores dropped by about 10 points on a standard questionnaire, compared to an 8-point drop for the phyto group.
A 2-point difference. The researchers didn't even consider that clinically important. It doesn't sound like a game changer.
It's not a huge gap, I'll grant you that, but what's more telling is that 25% of the people in the keto group achieved depression remission compared to only 9% in the other group. For those specific individuals, it was a massive deal.
Okay, that is a more significant number. But what happened after the 6 weeks? I can't imagine anyone sticks to that diet.
You're right, that's the catch. They did a follow-up at 12 weeks. By then, half of the people in the keto group had stopped following the diet entirely. The benefits they had seen were reduced, suggesting the effects might be short-lived if you don't stick with it.
Which is incredibly difficult. So it's a potential short-term boost for some, but not a sustainable long-term cure. And it's definitely not a replacement for established treatments like therapy and medication, right?
Absolutely not. The researchers and other experts were very clear about that. It's more of a proof of concept. It shows that dietary changes can potentially influence mood, even in people who haven't responded well to other treatments. It opens up a new avenue of research, but it comes with a lot of caveats.
Resigned, but wanting something better. So the takeaway is, this might help some people for a little while if they can manage a very restrictive diet. It's not a miracle, but it's a sliver of hope. I guess I can live with that. Let's end on something good. Please tell me you have an actual, unambiguously positive story.
I do, and it involves something you probably haven't thought much about: old hair.
Old hair? You mean my shower drain? Because I have a story about that, and it is not positive.
No, I mean a century's worth of hair samples preserved over generations. Scientists at the University of Utah used them to trace our exposure to a very dangerous substance over the last 100 years: lead.
Lead? From gasoline and paint and all that? I thought we sorted that out ages ago.
We did, and this study shows just how incredibly successful we were. For decades, Americans were surrounded by lead. It was in car exhaust, factories, even drinking water. By analyzing hair samples going all the way back to 1916, scientists created a timeline of lead exposure.
And what did they find? A terrifying amount of lead in our grandparents' hair?
Exactly. The study showed that before environmental regulations were put in place by the EPA, the lead levels in people's hair were about 100 times higher than they are today.
100 times? That's staggering. So you can literally see the moment the regulations, like banning leaded gasoline, kicked in?
It's crystal clear in the data. There's a steep, dramatic collapse in lead levels right after those rules were introduced. It's a perfect real-world example of how public health policy can have a massive, direct impact on our biology. We identified a poison in our environment, we took collective action to remove it, and we can see the positive results embedded right in our biology.
I have to admit, that's pretty cool. A story where the government did something and it actually worked beautifully. It's a nice change of pace.
It's a huge public health victory. The study's authors did point out, a little ominously, that some of those environmental safeguards are being weakened now, which is a reminder not to take these things for granted.
Of course, just when I was starting to feel good about things, there's always a catch. Still, it proves that it's possible to fix big, scary problems.
That's the perfect optimistic note to end on. So today we learned that the bitter taste of your coffee might be a workout for your brain.
That we need to better understand the structural brain changes that happen during menopause.
That a keto diet might offer a short-term boost for some people with severe depression, but it's no magic bullet.
And that according to old hair, we are capable of cleaning up our environment and protecting public health when we actually decide to, which is both inspiring and a little frustrating.
I'll take the inspiring part. Join us next time on It Worked in Mice.
Sounds real nice.
Will it work for you? Let's find out what's true.